Big news for Connecticut. We are getting our own oyster trail. And with us now is Anthony from the State Department of Economic Development. And what's your official title, Anthony?
Chief Marketing Officer.
Chief Marketing Officer for the state of Connecticut. And you are here to talk about this. The Oyster Trail, what is that exactly?
So the Oyster Trail is a way for all of our consumers, either residents or out-of-state visitors, give them a chance to try and buy all of our fantastic oysters, these fruits of the sea. You know, the governor calls us the Napa Valley of oysters, so why the heck should we not have a chance to be able to sell them to anybody who wants to buy them?
Yeah, it really is underappreciated, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's why we're doing this. It's a chance for us to highlight something that we do and do well. I actually think we do it just as well as pizza. We should be known for it.
How big of an industry is this?
It's a very large industry, and it's only growing. And in fact, actually, in recent years, the industry continues to explode, and we're on the cusp of it being mainstream, not just in Connecticut, but for people out of state to recognize what we do.
So what does this mean for tourism? When someone in New York or Massachusetts or even California reads about the Connecticut Oyster Trail, and they're going to in some of these national magazines which are covering this, what do they learn and what do they get out of it? I
think it means for them, there's a chance to come to our state, try something that we do and do very well, and it's a reason for them to come here. At the end of the day, our goal is to make Connecticut oysters synonymous with Maine lobsters in that same stratosphere. Yeah. And I think that we have the product to be able to do that.
Oysters is sort of an acquired taste. When I was in college, I shucked oysters at Legal Seafoods for a while.
You have the scars to show for it, I bet.
Well, we wore these big rubber gloves, and they had the, what do you call that thing that pries them open? I don't know what it is, but it was, it's hard work. It's hard work. But some people see them and they're like, I don't like the way they look. So how do you convince someone to try an oyster?
I say just bottoms up. Give it a whirl. Jump right in, and if you're ever going to try an oyster, Connecticut is the place to do it. We actually just had a very large event at Shell and Bones right here in New Haven, and I had not only a member of my staff, but one of your fellow journalists in the Connecticut media world, who was the first time they ever had tried oysters.
Yeah.
And it was a friend of mine. She said, Anthony, I have been missing out on oysters for 34 years. Yeah. Now I'm going to have a dozen more. She ended up having like almost 2 dozen oysters in one sitting.
I haven't had them in a while, but you put the horseradish on and the Tabasco sauce, and yeah, they really are phenomenal. Are there parts of the state that produce more oysters than others?
So the king of oysters right now in Connecticut is Copp's Island. They're out of Norwalk. They've been doing it for a very long time, and the Bloom family, who are the proprietors, they've been running it for a few generations. They have national distribution. But I'd say whether it's you're in Western Connecticut or even moving further east into here into New Haven and then going out to Guilford and even further out into Stonington, they're all absolutely wonderful. And the quality that we have here is based on regulations put forth by the Department of Agriculture.
I'll admit, I don't know too much about them. Is there an oyster season or is it year-round?
You know what? I learned this recently. I've kind of gotten a chance to geek out about it. The best time to eat oysters is when it starts to get colder. So from October through even December is probably the right time, because those oysters know the water's about to get cold. They're starting to add fat to hibernate from the coldest months when the water gets below 50. So they've got an extra bit of fat and they're juicier. It's pretty darn good if you ask me.
So the perfect trip, you come to Connecticut for a day and you have oysters maybe on the shoreline somewhere for lunch, and then you go up to Hartford and you see some of the historic sites, and then you go to New Haven and you have pizza, right?
You know what, Dennis, I think you should be doing my job. You should be the head of tourism for the state of Connecticut.
Tell me how these trails help our state.
I think they help everybody in the state, whether you're a business or a visitor, by giving them an idea of what you should do. Because it's kind of tough to go to a spot and just kind of wing it and figure it out. You got to have a hook to come in. So whether you're a big fan of oysters or just a foodie, or you're here for the history and you want a good meal, you can check out the Oyster Trail and know where to go and what to try.
One final question. There might be somebody at home saying, I'm just going to go to the beach and get some oysters. You need a license to get them? Just dig one out of the soil? I mean,
not that I know of, but sand. You know what? I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
That seems too adventurous. That's too adventurous for me.
You want to be safe. All right, Anthony, the Chief Marketing Officer for the state of Connecticut. Thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me, Dennis. Good to see you.
Happy summer. Definitely have to try another oyster. It's been a few years. In a moment, we remember a trailblazer in our state's history, Ella Grasso. And we invite you to connect with us here at This Week. You can send us an email with a story idea, an interview suggestion. We welcome them all. That's at this week at WTNH.com. Also, connect with me on social media. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, also Instagram and Facebook. This Week in Connecticut will be right back on this Sunday morning.